I noticed the concerts are usually about 90 minutes, but it seems like 5 minutes have gone by. It's just,
It's quite the opposite on my end of things.
I'm sure. Sitting in the technical room.
Yeah, listening to everything. It's quite the opposite. It's like this time has slowed down. It's like I hear everything in exquisite detail in a sense, and so it is interesting. I would like to actually be part of the audience once, just to hear what that's like. But I know that it's an incredible experience, and I have actually been present for that. And so Lubomir and Deborah together, I think, are very complementary in terms of how they blend their different styles, and they seem to somehow come out and create something even greater.
Yeah.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts in this context.
Yes. When you introduced Deborah last night, you described her music as impressionistic, was the term?
Neo-impressionistic.
Neo-impressionistic. What did you mean by that?
Well,
that's a musical term, I know.
Well, it's sort of a musical term, but it's more like her music, although it's changed since she's collaborated with Lubomir. Her music has always been, I don't know how she does it either, instantaneously produced. She doesn't practice these pieces. I mean, she practices a great deal in terms of her technique and everything else, but when it comes to performing a piece, every time she plays, it's just in the present. I mean, it has always amazed me how she can do this. Well, anyone can do this, where they just produce these masterpieces out of nothing. I mean, like last night's performance, for example. I've never heard that piece before. Nobody's ever heard that piece, and it comes together because of this, as a requirement of the space, the mood of the people, and just her own presence and connectedness to what's there, and that's what's transmitted in a sense, and it is a transmission. It's a transmission through music of a deeper level of being, and that's what she's always reaching for. That she wants to give people a sense of healing, integrity, of wholeness, and yet at the same time opening up unseen new vistas in themselves that they've never suspected were there. And so she's like, she doesn't write down her music, although she can, whereas Lubomir writes down his music, musical progressions. But when the two of them get together, and one's sort of freeform and one's established, and yet going toward this improvisational aspect, when the two of them get together and they meld that their individual impulses, somehow it blends into something quite beyond what either of them could do individually, and it's quite remarkable.
It is.
And people seem to be having a good time being present for it, and we're so happy about that.
Yes.
May I continue?
Does she come with a germ of an idea, or just takes off?
Well, I mean, if you've ever listened to some of her initial recordings, I mean, her first 6 or 7 recordings, if you listen to it like a 15-minute piece, in there are incredibly beautiful themes that any musician could take, like one 20-second segment, and they could turn that into an entire composition. I mean, her work is embedded with miraculously pristine beauty in terms of melody and just where it goes. So I mean, I would do a project with her where I would just go over, let's look at this melody, and can you develop this out? I mean, we did one recording like that called Mantra Mandala, where we just did one theme, and it extended over 70 minutes, where she just went. It was a raga, it was a Western raga, and that's the kind of music she does. Is like she just takes this beauty, and she's obviously got this incredible beauty in her to express it outwardly, and so it's a privilege.
And she plays with her eyes closed.
Yeah.
Often. And
Well, I mean, she does because she's sensing and feeling it.
yes.
Sensing and feeling, and there's a difference. It's not just tactile touch and that kind of thing. Feeling has to do with unity. You might say our inmost sense of unity is what real feeling is related to. So real feelings are always unitive. They're not like, dislike.
Yes.
Those are emotions. Feeling, in the real sense of what I'm saying, it has got to do always with universal unity and universal individual, if you
right.
How that comes into one.
Her playing is strong, but it's very vulnerable. You know, it's fresh, vulnerable, it's innocent.
Yes, it is.
It's wonderful to listen to her.
Well, and so, I mean, and then Lubomir, of course, is like, what do they call that? Jagannatha, the chariot of Vishnu, like it roars down and up and down mountains and, over everything. And yet it does have a delicacy, but when the two of them combine, this incredibly powerful force, sometimes they switch. Sometimes then, Lubomir becomes the yin and Deborah becomes the yang.
Right.
And so it's a very interesting Tao when that merges and becomes one unified piece. And so that's the adventure of it.
Yes.
They don't know where they're going a lot of the time in the sense of exactly. They just know that they have a destination to arrive at somewhere along. Last night it was somewhere along the line. So last night it was dedicated. The concert was dedicated to will and conscience.
Yes.
And that "and" is extremely important. I think, dedicating it to the new decade and to human beings in general, that you don't require just will, in order to accomplish your aims, because will can be very, very brutal.
Hitler had will.
Yeah, exactly. But without conscience, it becomes meaningless after a while, because if you're only trying to force it, there is force in will, but without the ameliorating effect of conscience, where real conscience, not just social conscience, but universal conscience, where everyone is recognized as an emanation, as a presence of the absolute, then when you look at it that way, when conscience is functioning at that level, then you can't hurt, and you can't wish to hurt, and your actions follow that. And so the dedication to will and conscience was, I think, a very brilliant and necessary exposition, to be truthful. And I hope whoever was present for it, and those who weren't present but do hear it, will get the benefit of that, and will get the idea, not the idea, but the impulse in themselves, to realize that is a way that we all need to live.
Yep, attunement with that.
Yep.
I did have a few more questions.
Fabulous, let's do it.
I find the piano seems to be the perfect instrument for them. Do you think they could play this music on other instruments? Or what is it about the piano?
Well, piano is the biggest instrument there is, I believe.
Physically.
Physically, but I mean, just the number of particular notes and the number of strings, and just the power of it. It's a big sounding instrument. I mean, like you can in this studio, of course, you're in it.
It fills the room.
It fills the room, but more so. And with Lubomir and with two pianos, with two acoustic pianos, the effect is even more.
Yes. But it can be soft, gentle.
Oh yeah, it can be incredibly delicate.
Yeah.
But it can be just mountains moving. Also, I mean, so the range,
plus
the polyphonic complexity of it is unparalleled.
And the harmonics and the overtones. What else could produce that?
No, because it doesn't have that range. And so the number of octaves present in a piano is just contributes to it. But I mean, they're making bigger pianos now with even a wider range, and so it isn't a dead instrument. I mean, I think Lubomir, when we first met him, was concerned that the piano would become extinct. in the sense that, you know, eventually it would all be electronic and virtual, and it's true. I mean, much of music today is going toward non, tactile. It's like you don't touch anything. You know, you move a mouse around, and you create sounds that have already been produced by someone who could actually play. But the guys doing it now aren't players.
No, it's electronic.
They're manipulators. They're producers. They're producers of sound, but they're not actual players of instruments a lot of the time. And so, I mean, there is that concern. I suppose we are trying to transmit the fact that in a real piano there is so much more than has been heard. I mean, Chopin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff, these great players changed the very nature of music and with the piano. And I think with Lubomir Melnik, it has jumped to a different level. I mean, he has gone, I believe myself, that Lubomir Melnik has taken the piano to a totally different level.
Yes.
He is doing something with the instrument that has not been done before. And I certainly hope that there are anyone who's interested in music will look into this and listen to what he's doing, because it is unique. And I think Deborah Judith and Lubomir Melnik together, playing together, are just increasing the possibilities of the music that's being generated. And my goodness, yes, the piano is a wonderful instrument, but it's like it can be used as a paperweight, just as much, chopsticks and everything else. But it's like a super computer that hasn't even been scratched in terms of the possibilities. And I feel like this music, especially, if you can understand that music for 2 pianos could generate this, can you imagine what 4 pianos could do, or 10 pianos could do? I mean, they don't write music for that, but that's what's possible. You know, if you have 10 trombones, hey, why can't you have 10 pianos? Because nobody's ever been able to access the real potential of where all those harmonics will go and what it will do. I mean, I think it's obviously a powerful instrument, very powerful. And so in that context, powerful and subtle.
Yes.
And I think that what can be done with it, the potentialities of multiple piano work, hasn't even been scratched yet. And I think Lubomir Melnik has not just opened the door, but taken the wall off.
Yes.
For people to see, like, this is what the next level of the piano can be. We need to work with creating, not writing for just the primary notes, but for how the harmonics work together.
Right.
And then those the other subharmonics and everything else. And then when you hear it, there's no question that the audience is moved. And I think that there's going to have to be a need for that. And I think these folks are working on it from their end of things, but I think the audience, the listener, the being has to have a wish to have that. It's like nourishment. It's like food that you really, really need, and it's really healthy, and it's really vivifying, and it's something that you appreciate because of that.